The NHO Show.
You got that pressure.
Good morning. For those listening at just after 8 o'clock this morning, it's the NHO Show. Story here, Colin is here, and we are discussing last week we got into it a little bit about Stevie Y, and Colin threw out the line, Stevie Y is a wizard. Which then spawned the incredible discussion and around, is Stevie Y a wizard? And you know what? I think he is.
And him casting spells over the NHL.
Whoa. We'll get better at those wizardry puns, wizardry lines as the episode goes on.
And for those Harry Potter nerds out there, it's like he's carrying a bottle of Versatium, Versatracium. See, I'm not on the level, but the truth serum, just to hold people accountable for blackmail purposes, because some of the deals and things he's pulled off, it's like he's got some tricks up his sleeve. But
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
It was happy Friday, everybody, on what is kind of like a Christmas Eve to some people out there, kind of myself included, as part Irish. It's a big Saturday ahead of us tomorrow, so hopefully you're getting your rest in today. But we'll soothe you this morning with some hockey talk. And like you said, we got inspired talking about Stevie Y's, talking about the trade deadline last week and how Tampa Bay somehow pulled off getting McDonough and JT Miller from the Rangers. And that's kind of what spawned this whole topic, which we're going to delve into a little bit deeper here.
So exactly. And with Stevie Y, I think what makes him so attractive as a GM is he is probably the best chess player. And I equate him to a master chess player. And he's got that straight up poker face. You never see him sweat. But like you said, he's got an incredible ability to manipulate a deal to make it work in his favor. And in chess, it's the same thing. You're going to push your opponent to make certain moves so that you can then go and win the game easily. And I say that because I get beat in chess all the time. Please never play me in chess, unless you want to win, because that's going to happen.
I was never a big chess guy, but I hear what you're saying. But I was actually going to say, like you said, like poker face as well, because, well, we'll talk about it a little later, but it seems like he's always holding all the cards when sometimes he's not, but he makes people believe it anyway.
So where do you want to start? Where does his wizardry start?
Well, when I was doing a little bit of research on just exactly all the moves, because I know the major ones, but I was curious to see kind of more details. And I stumbled across this article that was written by Ryan Dixon for Sportsnet a few years ago. So I was like, I think it was November of 2016 it was published. And I think it gave a good background on Steve during his playing career and how he's just kind of a student of the game. And I think that really comes through as a GM. I mean, he obviously people know him as, when he was captain of the Red Wings, he's a great character guy, and the article really emphasizes the communication that he stresses with, not only with his fellow colleagues, but also his kind of opponents around the league, like his other fellow GMs and stuff. And it's an interesting read. I think we can include that into our little on our Facebook page right here, the link to the article. But
it's there, coincidentally.
It's there. Okay,
I
cool.
just posted it.
Awesome. So yeah, like I said, it was just a little good background of his an inside look at how he studies everything he gets involved with, and he doesn't he asks the question why a lot. He doesn't like just the typical response, and I think it's a good starting point because he has, in a way, revolutionized some ways of being a GM. And the first major situation, I guess, that we can start with as his presence as a general manager was the Marty St. Louis situation, which was not an easy situation to tackle for anyone. And it's one that hits home for you because I know Marty's like your favorite player of all time.
Absolutely.
So he, when he was involved with Team Canada at the Vancouver Olympics, he was the new GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2010, and he actually left Marty St. Louis off the roster, which was a very controversial move at the time, and was kind of the beginning of the end, I think, for Marty in Tampa Bay, because he was a little sour at it. So doing that to, obviously, he has to be as unbiased as possible, but the fact that like it wouldn't have been a bad decision for him to pick St. Louis, and he still went against it, and then made the trade with the Rangers that ended up being really good for him because, I mean, Callahan, doesn't have the greatest contract and he's had his injury problems, but he's still on the team and he's still contributing, whereas Marty St. Louis has been retired for a few years now, and not only did he get Callahan, he got a few picks out of the deal as well. So that just kind of shows that he's not really afraid to make the tough decision. Doesn't really care about public opinion if it what works for his team. So
absolutely, and to go back to that Olympics, he ended up bringing Marty St. Louis in.
Right.
Marty was an injury replacement.
Right, I forgot about that. I did think
so. So I wonder though. I wonder, like he left him off the original. Marty didn't make the original roster, but then I forget who he replaced. But there was an injury, and Marty came in to replace that player. And Marty played, I think, pretty much the whole tournament. He came in and played the whole tournament. So what I wonder though if that was almost a really calculated play. Given Steve's kind of way to move these little pieces around, and maybe I wonder if it was some sort of calculated play to motivate Marty St. Louis or to give him that thirst or to force that trade. I wonder if there was a little bit more motive to that.
Yeah, you might be right there. I mean, I'm sure he was a very motivated player once he got to Vancouver and wanted to prove everyone wrong. And I'm glad. See, that's why you're here, Star, because I did kind of remember him being involved in the Olympics, but I don't have the best memory, and I just knew that initially he was left off the team. So thanks for reminding me of that. But
thanks for telling me I was wrong. What you just said.
No, it's good. You have to admit when you're wrong, you know.
Absolutely. And any other player, I may not have remembered those things, but
yeah, exactly.
The Olympics is when I really fell in love with Marty St. Louis, which I will admit to because I'll go back to saying, you know, I didn't become a true hockey fan until, you know, I didn't really start watching hockey regularly until about 10 years ago, and really like the Vancouver Olympics were, even though the Olympics before that, but you know, it took me a long time to really. Hockey is there's a lot of players. It's a big league, and so it takes a while to become familiar with all of the players and who they are. So for me, Marty St. Louis, his coming out for me was the Olympics, and then I just became his biggest fan because he's little and I'm little, and I was like, yeah, little people.
Yeah, and like those tree trunk legs.
Yeah, I would like. One day I will meet him, and one day I will meet Marty St. Louis, and I never ever ask for photos with players, but I will ask for a photo with Marty St. Louis. And if I get Mr. St. Louis, may I please have a photo with you out of my mouth, it will be a good day. If I can get those words out of my mouth, it will be a good day.
I'm excited for that day.
I'll call you when it's happening. I wanted to go back to talking about kind of players turn GMs, and in the past I've talked a lot about. I've raised the point where I think that Mark Scheifele will succeed as a GM, and I've compared him a lot to what I feel like Trevor Linden is like, and Trevor is very intense and he's such a hard and intense with everything that he does. He does it at 1,000%. He has no other button, and level. But as we talk about Stevie Y, I feel like I should have, the comparison between Scheifele and Trevor Linden isn't quite as perfect as maybe Scheifele versus Stevie Y.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, actually. I think Stevie Y is probably a better comparable for Scheifele, even just as the kind of type of player he is, too. But, yeah, no, I think that's a great comparison. And like you said, we've talked about it before. I think they might have similar career trajectories as far as their life after the game. And Scheifele is a self-proclaimed hockey nerd as well, so it wouldn't be in the least surprising to see him just as successful as Stevie is on the executive side.
I wonder, and just throwing this out there, I know, Scheifele's doing great with the Jets despite being injured right now. I wonder if there's a roster spot with Tampa for Scheifele when he's ready for it.
I don't know. Winnipeg's never going to give him up, I don't think. He's the future captain.
Yeah, maybe not right away, but and Scheifele's got a long career ahead of him.
Yeah.
But I wonder if maybe as Scheifele's career continues and as it starts to wind down, if Stevie isn't already thinking about who's gonna rise up through the ranks and replace me, and Scheifele, come over here and I will teach you the ways.
That'd be a great place for him to learn the trade for sure.
Because I feel like that's kind of Steve Yzerman's MO, right? Like Steve wants to teach. He wants to teach that his way, and I'm sure there's no way he doesn't recognize that he could do that in Mark Scheifele.
Exactly. Well, that's a good place to start too. Like his way. One of the best reasons why, one of the main reasons why Tampa has been so successful is because Steve has brought over I feel like I can't call him Steve. I need to call him Stevie Y.
Me too. Me too. It's like you have those friends that have first names and last names. I have a friend named Matt Lowe, and that's his first name and last name. I can't just call him Matt. It's like Matt Lowe. I always have to call him by his first and last name. So I can't call Steve Yzerman. It's Steve Yzerman, Mr. Yzerman, or Stevie Y. That's
Stevie
it.
Y. So so Stevie Y, like he brought over the Detroit model of success, which is obviously a very good model to replicate since they made the playoffs for something like 21 years consecutively, which is the record, I'm pretty sure. And it's one of the more underrated parts of being a successful GM, but so crucial in the health and success of the franchise at the NHL level is creating a very good AHL program. And the Norfolk Admirals, who then became the Syracuse, well, they didn't become the Syracuse Crunch, but Tampa Bay was associated with them when he first started, and now they're associated with Syracuse. They've been one of the premier AHL franchises since Stevie Y took over. And one of his first moves after being hired in 2010 was to go out and hire John Cooper as coach, which I mentioned earlier how he's kind of revolutionized a bit of being a GM. And John Cooper was not your traditional coach. He wasn't a former NHLer. I think he was in law before, and he's just this really smart guy, obviously, but Stevie Y kind of gave him his first chance at the pro level, at least in the AHL. I think he was coaching the ECHL maybe before, but so that was the first big move. And then drafting Palat in the 7th round, and if you've listened to our podcast before, I'm a huge Andre Palat fan, probably the biggest one you'll meet, because I don't know many people who go around singing Andre Palat praises, but he's going to be back in the lineup soon for Tampa, and if you get it, hopefully you'll be watching Tampa during the playoffs, but he just plays the game the right way. Like, he's so defensively responsible. He wears an A on that team for a reason. There's full of superstars, but he's one of the assistant captains, so that's the reason. And then also getting Tyler Johnson as just an unsigned free agent. Those are two of his first moves that really started the ball rolling for Tampa. So I think a lot more teams, after seeing the success of, say, a guy like Platt and Johnson coming in, they didn't step in the NHL until they were each 23 years old, and both were in contention for the Calder Trophy. And that's what Detroit did. They drafted guys, they developed them in the NHL. Datsuk and Zetterberg didn't come in as 18-year-old rookies or 19-year-old rookies. They waited till they were seasoned and ready for the NHL, and then had success right away. So that's a huge part of it. But just to kind of highlight what kind of success they've had as a AHL franchise, they won the Calder Cup in 2012, setting the longest winning streak for 28 games in a row. The next season they finished first, and John Cooper won Coach of the Year that year. Next season they finished first in the AHL. And then here's some other guys that were from those two teams specifically that are showing success or having success in the NHL at other organizations. So Mark Barberio, Colorado, Rakukutis in Philly, who's an infamous guy around the league. JT Brown, Anaheim just picked him up off waivers, but he's still a good NHL. Richard Panik, who Maple Leafs fans will know and Chicago fans will know, he just got traded, but he had a great year last year. Mesnikov, obviously, who's now a Ranger, and then Brett Connolly in Washington, who had a short stint in Boston as well. So these are just, it kind of goes to show when you have a successful franchise that you end up being a feeder team for the rest of the league. And that's what Tampa kind of has become. They keep all their best players, but the ones that they don't have room for are getting success at other places in the NHL.
There you go. That was a solid breakdown.
Yeah, and you need to have that AHL success. And I think especially with the Tyler Johnson example, because he's a small guy, which is why he was undrafted and unsigned. But obviously, it's like Stevie Y knew what the new NHL was going to look like before the rest of the league did, and that's why he went out and took a chance on a guy like that, and that's why they've got guys like Braden Point on their team, and he kind of discovered Jonathan Marchessault as well. He was with Tampa before his big breakout year with Florida, and now obviously seeing so much success with Vegas. Yanni Gourde's another example, just smaller skilled guys that probably weren't given a fair shake elsewhere, or even from other teams' GMs, they just didn't think they'd become anything. And I think more and more teams, from the Tyler Johnson example, are looking at what kind of free agents are out there and how maybe they've got overlooked or over scouted, which I think happens in a lot of cases, and need to get a chance somewhere. And obviously, to Johnson's credit, he's earned himself the right the whole way. And for you playoff poolies out there, he might be the best buy low option in the draft this year, because he's probably the 7th leading scorer on Tampa right now, but playoffs are his time to shine. So pick him up. In the 3rd round, 4th round.
I want to go back to something you just said, because I think you just nailed the reason why Stevie Y is a wizard. You're gonna lie. because that is the question. Is Stevie Y a wizard? Yeah, yes, no, and why, and designs his wizardry. You nailed it on the head. You said he knew what the league would look like before the league did, or something to that effect. But you said Stevie Y could see his. So I think. So to go back to why Stevie Y is a wizard, because he can see where the league is going and what the league is going to look like in 2 to 3 years before anybody else can.
Yeah, he's definitely more of he's a trendsetter. He's a trailblazer.
And I think he's just unafraid, unmerciful, and he just does it. But it's that vision and that idea and that concept and going back to you just saying, was the move to leave Marty St. Louis off the original Olympic roster on purpose? Maybe it was.
Who knows? Yeah, he's just mind fucks you. Sorry for my profanity so early, but
That's okay. Sometimes you just got to get right into it.
I don't know any.
Going back to that, what are your thoughts on Mikhail Sergachev?
Well, see, that's funny because, the Durant situation is one we can't ignore when we're talking about Stevie Y, but I was never, I saw Mikhail Sergachev play, and maybe this is just because I'm not, I don't want Montreal to ever be good, but when he was a Montreal draft pick, and was never the hugest fan of Sergachev as a junior player. Obviously the skill was there and everything, but I kind of doubted his ability to be more of a two-way force rather than an offensive specialist. And mind you, I think he is probably in the best situation that he could possibly be in Tampa, playing behind guys like Victor Hedman and Strawman and all their other defensemen on that team. And he's playing really sheltered minutes, learning from some of the best in the game, whereas in Montreal, he would have been thrown in the fire. And that kind of brings up a whole new discussion about situational, players thriving in certain situations rather than another one, because I think that is a huge thing when it comes to player development. But that's another testament to Stevie's work as a GM, is that if you build a good, solid system and have the assets to bring guys in slowly, then you're going to see more and more success. It's kind of like the rich getting richer in a lot of ways. So I don't think he would have been nearly as good in Montreal this year as he's been in Tampa Bay.
Absolutely not. I completely agree.
But he has proven me wrong, because I wasn't a huge fan of the Duran trade, but I'm a huge Duran fan, and I also don't think Duran would be having as bad of a year anywhere else if he wasn't in Montreal. So I still think people need to give Duran some time, but just because I've watched him with McKinnon in juniors, and I know he is like Patrick Kane in a lot of ways. He's not as good as Patrick Kane, but if you give him someone to feed that can snipe, and he'll light up the league. But
I'm in complete agreement with you with that. I don't think Sergachev was never going to, when he went to Montreal, part of my heart broke for him because I knew he wasn't going to do well. He wasn't going to succeed in the Montreal system. He's not that kind of a player. And when I saw him, barely getting any minutes, he was sent down to the AHL. He was still, playing with the Spitfires. It's that's great, but, this is a player that actually has potential and you should be building him. And at the time when he got drafted, that Habs roster was so stacked that there was really no opportunity for him to break through. There's a whole bunch of guys who are way older than him, and here's this new young kid who really has still had a lot to learn. And so that 1 year kind of going up and down, playing a couple of NHL games, winning the Mem Cup with the Spitfires, I think that was a solid learning year for him. And then with that Durant trade, where he ends up with Tampa and is actually getting some real minutes and being able to, get better as an NHL player versus getting better as an AHL guy, I think has been crucial for him. And again, just goes back to the wizardry and the brilliance of Stevie Y and his ability to see. I think he sees a lot in Sergachev and sees his potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that he can try to mold him to be kind of the next Victor Hedman under the watch of Victor Hedman. It was kind of when they had St. Louis and Duran was coming up, and I'm well, they're going to lose St. Louis, who is one of the best players in the league at the time, as far as feet. Him and Stamkos had unreal chemistry. But then I was how unfair is it that like as soon as St. Louis retires, they have Jonathan Drouin just to replicate exactly what St. Louis is bringing, and it's just that constant cycle of okay, like we have this good player now, but he's not going to be here forever. So let's start thinking about who's going to fill his shoes when he's gone, and it's something that Chicago hasn't done, especially with guys like Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook, and Detroit didn't do with Lidstrom. Like as soon as those players like have like as soon as Lidstrom retired, I knew like Detroit was going to head for the basement, and as soon as Duncan Keith has kind of lost his step or like hasn't getting up there a little long in the tooth, that was when I knew Chicago was going to start to decline because those number one defensemen are obviously so important. And to trade a winger, and I mean, let's just talk about the Drouin situation since we're touching on so much. Drouin wasn't happy. He's kind of a prima donna when it comes to his personality and getting playing time and everything, and he wasn't happy being brought along slowly like that. But that's just how Tampa does things. And obviously, he voiced his opinion. He demanded a trade. And Stevie was like, okay, you can demand a trade, but like doesn't mean I'm going to trade you because you don't hold any power, negotiating power. You're still on your entry level contract, so good luck, you know. So the fact that he just like obviously doesn't care, and then eventually bridges were mended enough for him to return to the lineup, just because players at the end of the day want to play hockey, and that's the only way to. If Drouin wants to get traded, the only way to get traded is to showcase your talent so the rest of the league can see what they're trading for. So the CUI like obviously knew he had all the leverage in that situation and just didn't bat an eye. And even when it looked like, oh, maybe he'll stay, and then boom, in the offseason, he gets traded for Sergachev, one of the best prospects in the game. So, and filled a huge need for Tampa. So it's just so like cool that he can do that and hold his poker face and not. And I think as a former player and as a guy who was the NHLPA rep for the players, he gets he's been in that position, and he's not going to take any bullshit from any players because he's been in that situation and he knows what it's like and he knows what kind of leverage he holds over them. So that was a whole masterful situation in itself. So yeah,
Absolutely. I would never want to be Stevie Y's kid.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
I would never want to be in a situation where I had to go, Dad, I need the car for this. And he'll be like, no.
But do you? Yeah.
But do you? Do you ask him that question?
Public transit, and I mean, I give you this allowance, and
take the bus. I don't want to take the bus. No, you're going to take the bus. I would never want to be his kid. So let's talk about. So we talked a lot NHL, his brilliance with the NHL. Let's talk a little bit about Joe Sakic versus Steve Yzerman. Now, Joe Sakic is having a lot of issues. He definitely has one of the hardest jobs in the league right now. But I think so. I think he's
maybe not anymore.
Maybe not anymore. But he has had one of the harder jobs in the league, and there's always a. We've talked a little bit about it in the past. So Joe Sakic versus Steve Yzerman. Give me your thoughts.
Yes, you my thoughts, eh?
Sing me a song about two players turned GM.
I need a song about it?
No, I was just kidding. I don't need a song. But two ex-players turned GM. What has made both of them successful separately? Where do you see, what could Joe Sakic learn from Steve Yzerman?
Well, I mean, it's funny that they're both in this position right now, just because throughout their playing careers, it's always, and especially with the rivalry between Colorado and Detroit back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was always Stevie Y versus Joe Sakic, who's better, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, as a growing up Colorado fan, I was a little biased. And I mean, I think the numbers do back up Joe as far as their playing days are concerned, that you could argue, is slightly the better player. Obviously, both greats, but it's just funny to see them now transition in as general managers and still, he can still kind of compare them. I mean, Joe hasn't had as long. He was hired he's hired 3 years after Stevie Y, so 2013. So if you give him some more time, and he had to deal with a very difficult situation with Patrick Waugh, who, I mean, I think he was part of the decision to bring Patrick in, but obviously that didn't work out the way anyone planned, and he kind of left in a messy way, and he wanted more decision-making power, and I think that's kind of stunted Joe's ability to make the moves that he wanted to make, at least for the first couple of years. So it's really nice to see him thrive just on his own. But I think he's actually using Stevie Y's model to build his team. Like, he's trying to, and he mentioned that as soon as he took over, they want to build the AHL depth up, make the AHL very strong. Colorado, I mean, Tampa Bay has one of the best prospect pool in the league, in my opinion. Like I said, I just keep feeding players up. So credit to the scouts in the Tampa Bay organization, for sure. And scouts have a thankless job, so I want to give them a shout out. But credit to Stevie Y for putting the right people in charge and identifying who knows what hockey brain that he wants to feed off of to make those draft picks. And I think one of the reasons for Colorado's great turnaround are their scouts, not only at the amateur level, but the pro level. Like, I was basically, ever since they drafted Mikko Rantanen, I mean, picks like McKinnon and Landeskog and Duchesne, those were no-brainers. But Mikko Rantanen, I didn't know anything about at the time, and I wasn't sure of, and Tyson Jost, after that, I wasn't sure of because I saw him play in Penticton, but I found out later that he was injured when I saw him, so that made a whole lot of sense. But the fact that those, it's not an easy thing to nail a pick at number 10, and they've got great yield from both of those. So now I've just learned to kind of trust the scouting and the picks of Colorado. And I mean, with Cale Makar and Connor Timmins coming, and just they really increased the depth of the organization all throughout. And I mean, he's made a few franchise-altering trades with the O'Reilly and Duchesne trade that people, I mean, the media ripped on him for the O'Reilly trade and still don't really give him the credit he deserves, because Nikita Zadorov and JT Compher are the two main pieces, and they are both huge reasons why the Avs are so good this year. So that was a win-win for both teams. I do think he's following in the steps of Stevie Y. Like, he's stared down O'Reilly during the contract negotiations. Like, he's signed all of his core players to really good deals. Like, who would you rather have? I mean, McDavid or McKinnon this year? Like, based on everything involved, which includes contract, McKinnon's making half of what McDavid makes towards the cap. So, value-wise, when you're building a team, you could definitely argue that McKinnon is more valuable for the next 5 years because he's making half of what McDavid's making, which gives you a whole extra $6 million to go find another player, another top line player for your team. They're in one of the best cap situations that any team could hope for, and I think that's one of the kind of downfalls to Stevie Y is that he's a really good cap manager, but he's not perfect. I mean, but I'm kind of a hard critic when it comes to that, because he has signed he's gotten into trouble signing guys like Matt Carl, we had to buy out, but Joe Sakic's done that too with Brad Stewart and stuff. So I think you have to give them a few freebies, especially at the start. But they both had really good contract negotiations, made a lot of good trades. So yeah, I think you can really compare them. It'll be interesting to see Tampa's success, obviously, this year and going forward, and if they win the cup and how many cups they win, and then see if Colorado can kind of replicate that a few years from now, since they're kind of trending that way. Hopefully, knock on wood.
I want to pose a question to you, and I want to go back to the Olympics quickly.
Okay.
So Stevie Y being a player and an ex-player, he was okay. Maybe less of a question, but start a discussion. He was entirely behind players going to the Olympics. He was behind. He's like, I'm not going to stop Steven Stamkos from going to the Olympics. He wants to go. And then comparatively, you got guys like Eugene Melnick, who really led that charge on absolutely not. I'm not letting Erik Karlsson go to the Olympics. And I think that is another part of that, that beautiful ability that Stevie Y has to completely support his players and make his players feel like he really does care about them. You're more than a contract to me. Your happiness, if I can play those cards and if I can give you what you want, I'm going to give you what you want because at the end of the day, you're going to play better for me than if I say, look at Karlsson. Yeah, he's having not a great year. And I've said this before. He's probably just, Karlsson says, yeah, I want to stay in Ottawa. I really love Ottawa and all those things. But that's just PR shit. Of course, he's going to say, I want to stay in Ottawa. He doesn't want to, no player really wants to get traded at the end of the day. And plus, he's, he just got married. He's having his baby. He wants to stay in Ottawa at least for a little while because otherwise his wife is going to be like, I'm pregnant and you're trying to trade. We have to move. This is not cool.
You follow him on social media, don't you?
Oh well, I do social media. I follow everybody. I'm not a Karlsson stalker. Well, he's But
You can tell me if you are.
no, I'm not. You know that I'm a Shifley stalker. We know that. We know that. That's very clear. No, but come on. I do social media. It's my job to know these things. So, but just going back to that, Stevie Y knew that in order, and having from that player perspective, he's like, I need to get, and having, been part of Team Canada for so long, he knew that in order to ensure the happiness of the players that he had and he knows the value of Steven Stamkos. It's like, if I don't support Steven, like Stamkos in his desire to go to the Olympics, that is not going to be good for me this year. It's going to be a really bad idea. And whether he was whether he actually cared or not, I think he realized that it doesn't matter what I care about the Olympics or what I think or that I don't want to, about shutting operations down for 3 weeks in February and losing my top players and possible injuries and all the other reasons why GMs and owners were like, no, we can't send players to the Olympics. Stevie Y's like, I don't support Stamkos and going. I'm fucked. Completely fucked.
Yeah.
And then you get a Karlsson situation where, Melnick didn't support him and Karlsson's probably like, just don't really want to play for this guy.
Yeah, I think that comes back down to, again, him being a former player and a former captain and understanding the player's perspective. And I think that gives him a leg up on a lot of other executives in the league that haven't been in that situation. I'm pretty sure, all of the guys involved at the higher levels, most of them played the game growing up, but not at the highest level. And Stevie Y just understands it as a player, and like I said, I think that gives him a leg up in negotiation and getting respect from his players in contract negotiations and things like that. And to be fair to Eugene Melnick, and I don't really know why I'm defending the guy, but
I can't believe you are.
Eugene, he's an owner, right? Stevie Y is the GM. I'm not sure. I'm sure Pierre Dorian would have been saying, yeah, send. If Karlsson wants to go, I support him, and I'm not sure Tampa's owner would have been as gung-ho to send everyone just because it's the liability and stuff. But, and to the point as well, and maybe even more commendable for Stevie Y to come out and say that is Tampa Bay, as one of the best teams in the league, if not the best this year, probably would have had the most, or tied with the most Olympic representatives from their team. So they probably ran the greatest risk of losing one of their go-to guys for the stretch run if there was an injury. So that can't really be overstated, but like, it is a little different position to be in as a GM versus an owner, and I think that was the player side and Stevie Y coming out, just being like, hey, I've been there, I was a player, I went to the Olympics, I want my star players to have that kind of same experience and share that moment. But yeah, like, I mean, let's talk about the Stamkos situation too, because that's another kind of poker face situation for Steve. To have what's touted, and I mean, still to this day, he was the best free agent to make it to free agency, and it came down to the 11th hour. Like I never thought the Leafs would actually have a chance at him until like it was getting more and more. I was like, holy shit, he's actually going to hit free agency, and then he did, and then he still went back to Tampa Bay at like such a reasonable price, like 8.5 mil. Like that is, it's not like the discount that Kucherov's contract is, which is a whole nother discussion. But it's one of the best contracts you'll find for a star player in the league. I mean, Draisaitl's making just as much as him now, and he wasn't unrestricted free, and he was an RFA. So, I mean, obviously the cap's gone up and everything, but just to show you, like I could produce a list of guys that are getting paid more than Stamkos who never made it to unrestricted free agency. So it was kind of just another one of those things, like, how do you get the guy to sign for that much? And Kucherov, finding him in the second round and then getting him to sign, I think it was a 3 or 4 year contract at 4.7 when he just came off, like, I think it was like an 80-point season or something. He could have made almost double that money. And I think, I was sure, I mean, I said earlier that Stevie Y managing the cap isn't one of his best trades, but I was sure, I think it was last offseason or one before that, they were going to have to lose someone like Killorn or Tyler Johnson or something to sign Kucherov. And then he just goes out and gets him to sign for under 5 mil, which is the steal of the contract. This is a guy that's in the Hart Trophy race, currently leading the league in points, and he's making less than $5 million. So I think he said, hey, if you want to win, you're going to sign with us, and that's what he did. And I mean, he'll get paid a couple of years from now, but just the fact that he kind of bought himself this time to build a winner was a huge factor in him. All the moves since then, like, it's the reason they can go out and get a guy like Ryan McDonough and JT Miller to bolster their lineup, and like making again the Duran trade, like trading Duran as a young star player in the league and the guy you just picked like 4th overall. It's not a popular move in the fan base, especially like the guy Sergachev, who still had a lot of question marks, but it just keeps working out for him. So
it does. And will it work out for them in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
That is a big question. I mean, we're singing his praises, but he still has yet to have that Stanley Cup next to his name as far as the general manager level is concerned. And I mean, this could all be a moot point a couple months from now, and I think it probably will be, but he still has to get over that hump.
So a lot of talk right now regarding the Stanley Cup playoffs. You know, Toronto and Boston are kind of jockeying for those. It looks like, you know, Toronto and Boston will face each other in the first round, or it's like Toronto and Tampa is basically where it stands right now. To go on the Maple Leafs bias, because we all know I'm a Leafs fan.
Wouldn't that be recognized by us? Because I mean, as humans, it's inherent in us. So it's
gonna happen.
Important.
I live in Toronto.
Get it out in the open, you know.
Yeah, you love the Avs. I love the Maple Leafs. But we are fans. Like I you know, I love Tampa. I actually do love them, and I love some of the players. And being a Marty St. Louis fan, you know, and all of this discussion about Stevie Y, like you can't discount. And I love Winnipeg. You know, I've got a soft spot for the Rangers. I love the Sharks. You know, we're fans of every team, but but
That's
the
fair.
main focus right now is the playoffs and kind of standings as they stand. Do we see a rematch between Toronto and Boston?
Well-
Which would be, or do we see Toronto and Tampa face each other in the first round? And how different does that first round look based on that matchup? So what I'm getting to is that I think, you know, Toronto is in their best interest is to face. And here's a stats question for you, Colin.
Okay.
What are and it's an easy stat question. You know, win loss, like what would be Toronto's chances of making it to the second round if they play Tampa Bay versus their chances of making it to the second round playing Boston?
Well, I mean, I'd have to look at. I don't have it in front of me, but obviously their stats during the year and their head-to-head matchup. I think actually Tampa plays Toronto this week, so we'll probably get a better idea of that. But I mean, based on those stats, and off the top of my head, I would obviously say Boston, just because. Actually, they might match up better against Tampa Bay, just because they play a speed-skilled game, which I mean the Leafs want to play as well. So it would just be a run and gun type of game, whereas Boston is more of a cycle, grinded out team, and has a guy like Patrice Bergeron who can shut down Austin Matthews, and we've kind of seen what the Leafs minus Austin Matthews looks like, and it's not a pretty sight really. So, I mean, I'm gonna say Boston, but like I will look up each team's like breakdown for each team and see what the stats say, but my gut's gonna say Boston.
And I agree, and I completely agree. I think there's zero. I think if Toronto plays Tampa in the first round, they might get one game in. It's 5 games instead. It's gonna be a walk for Tampa. I don't see, and I mean, and you're right. We'll see later. We'll see in the next week, 2 weeks, kind of how they stack up against each other, end of the season. But Tampa's just got it more together, and Toronto doesn't. I think it's a walk for Tampa. Whereas with Boston, we've seen it before. Although the Toronto Maple Leafs look a lot different than they did in that Cup run a few years ago against Boston. It's a very different team, but Toronto has kind of a way to. They have a way of beating Boston, and despite Boston's strength and intensity, Toronto's speed and agility just trump Boston. So I think there's actually a chance for them. I think it would go to 7 games. It'd be a grind. The Maple Leafs would be battered and bruised by the time they get to the second round, and won't make it past the second round. But yeah, there's a better chance playing Boston. Boston makes more mistakes.
I mean,
Tampa doesn't really make mistakes.
Well, I mean, Boston, I would say, is a little bit is better defensively, or has been at least lately. Tampa Bay is one of those teams that can give up a lot of goals sometimes, but Tampa's just scary, you know, like
that's a great way to put it. Tampa is very scary. Boston's scary because they have guys like Bergeron who are just going to nail you, but you can get around that with speed and agility and skill. Tampa Bay is just going to be like, no, this is a walk in the park for us.
Yeah, and I mean, Boston has improved their depth, but Tampa's just deeper throughout the lineup. Like, I think if Toronto has success against Boston in the playoffs, it'll be because their third and fourth lines and D pairings are kind of outplaying Boston's, and the first 2 lines are kind of just canceling each other out. So, and I mean, I could look at the stats, like I said, but the stats also won't include the fact that Ryan McDonough and JT Miller are part of the Lightning, which kind of changed the whole complexion of that team. So I think this coming week with that matchup, I think it's on Wednesday that they play. That would be a big game to see. But what are some other like potential playoff matchups you kind of want to see or would look forward to?
Well, if we move our sights and set our sights over to the Western Division, I'm really excited to. I mean, everyone's really excited that Vegas is going to make it to the playoffs. What a swan song for them. I don't know. I don't really know what matchup I'd be excited to see them to see them go up against, because it's like you've been so good all season. It's just gonna be like another game for you. I know that sounds awful, but I feel myself being less excited to see Vegas in the playoffs just because they've been good all season. Like there's been no dip in the storyline for them. They've just been great. So it's like, what are you gonna do to wow me in the playoffs? What Easter egg do you have ready in the playoffs that I haven't already seen this season? And that's always that's the beauty of the playoffs, is that every team has to have that Easter egg that they pull out, that extra boost of energy that they pull out of their pocket that existed, and then it's like all of a sudden it's dialed up to 11. But Vegas has been dialed up to 11 all season, and like, can they go further? Can they go deeper? Can they just ram up the intensity? And that's where that, being that new team, even though they have veteran players on their team who have been there before, know what the playoffs look like, but still being a new team, are they going to be able to have that longevity through the playoffs and even make it to the end? I'm pumped for you to see Colorado. I'm actually really excited for that. I don't care who they play. Anybody.
Well, Star, I was gonna interject, but I didn't want to interrupt you. But as it stands right now, and this is true at the halfway mark of the season, which is it's crazy. It was crazy then, and it's even crazier now that we're at the 70-game mark. If the playoffs started today, Vegas would be playing Colorado, and I think that would be the best potential matchup for Colorado for sure. But like, just storylines as well, because if you would have put money on that playoff matchup at the beginning of the year, you might be a millionaire, because
and you entirely would have been called, you're crazy,
stupid. Yeah, you would have been.
You're crazy.
Like really, like people would not have held like you would just be dumb,
Yeah, you wouldn't have done it.
I would have called you dumb. I would have called myself dumb if I said it,
So if anyone out there is listening, if you called Colorado and Vegas first round Stanley Cup playoffs, I want to meet you. I want to hear from you. I want to talk to you.
Yeah, you either know something no one else does, or you're just stupid lucky. But because the only way,
or you just picked two names out of a hat and you were like, this is gonna be it. Here we go.
The only possible way that this matchup could happen too. And it's still, it's in jeopardy because Colorado is in jeopardy. So, but one of them has to be a division leader because they're in different divisions. So, and one of them had to be a wild card. So it's literally the only way that's possible is one of them won their division. And like that in itself, it was just not even a notion worth considering at the beginning of the year. So that is mind blowing to me. Like I said, I tweeted about it like at the halfway mark when I thought this is crazy because like this isn't gonna last, and we're at the 70-game mark and like it actually might happen. So I think that would be the best storyline for a Vegas series. And I would agree though with Vegas that the playoffs are almost gonna be anticlimactic because you're like, the only thing that they could really like impress you more at this point is if they made it to the conference finals. Because I'm not really expecting them to make it out of their division. Depending on who gets in, I've said before, I really think Anaheim's the dark horse there, but they got to get in the playoffs first. So Anaheim and LA are two teams to watch the Pacific. But yeah, that would be a really funny matchup. And yeah, hopefully Leafs play the Bruins. Or it's always good to see original six teams. As it stands right now as well, Pittsburgh and Philly are on a crash course to meet each other, which will be a fun series to watch as well. So that's what it kind of comes down to at this point, where we're getting close, and it's not, who's kind of in for sure, and you want to see potential matchups, because the first round, in my opinion, is the most fun one because there's hockey nonstop every night, important games, and it's such a huge factor on the rest of the playoffs, who gets through and who matches up against who in the second round. So, yeah.
There we go. There we go.
I'm
Well,
very excited.
yeah, got a few more weeks of regular season, but it is the time of the year where every single game counts.
Absolutely.
It's an exciting time, and we will see what happens. All right, Colin, that was a great. I don't know if we actually ended up figuring out why Stevie Y is a magician or a wizard.
I think it's a secret we'll just never know. You know, he just is, and you just gotta accept it. And once he wins that cup this year and pulls off his suit and reveals a cloak with a wand, then we'll know.
Then we'll know that Stevie Y is a wizard. All right, that's the NHO show. We'll be back as the regular season wraps up and Stanley Cup playoffs come and to leave you, Colin, with a stats question. A Stevie Y stats question. Statistically speaking, is Stevie Y the best player turned GM ever?
Maybe we'll have a nice little infographic to illustrate the comparison. But I mean, off the top of my head, I think it would have to be. I think Stevie Y has a chance to go down as one of the best hockey minds ever in the game, and I think that crown right now goes to his old coach Scotty Bowman, and obviously Jean Beliveau as well, who I think has like 10 cups, player and GM and executive. So Stevie Y's got a few cups as a player. We'll see how many cups he can win as executive. He's still really young, so he's got a lot of time to make that happen.
Great. All right, that's the NHO show. Tweet us, come up with the one line, a single answer for those of you listening, a single answer for why Stevie Y is a magician and a wizard. Keep calling him a magician, but he's also a wizard. Same goes to that. Why Stevie Y is a wizard. And also tweet us at the NHO show with your top playoff matchups if the playoffs were to start right now. You can find us online at the NHO show, thenhoshow.com, Facebook, Twitter. Share this. All of those social things we're supposed to tell you to do.
Happy St. Patty's Day weekend, everybody.
Happy St. Patty's Day weekend. Be safe. Be there. Watch a ton of hockey. And there you go. Happy Friday.